We spend so much time trying to understand money with spreadsheets and charts, but what if two of the most powerful forces shaping our financial lives are things we can't even see? Today, we're going to dive into Chapter 2 of Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money to uncover the hidden power of two siblings, luck and its shadow, risk. And this quote from NYU professor Scott Galloway, it's really the key that unlocks this entire chapter. It's this idea, which sounds simple but is actually pretty profound. Every outcome in life is guided by more than just what one person does. It means that when we see someone's massive success or their tragic failure, we're almost never seeing the whole picture. And to really get this, Housel tells this incredible real-world story about two young friends from Seattle who, by all accounts, were geared up to conquer the world together. I mean, just think about how ridiculously improbable this is. Gates himself has said, if there had been no Lakeside, there would have been no Microsoft. And how did this tiny school get a super advanced computer back then? Their mother's club held a rummage sale. That's not just a tiny advantage, you guys. That is a life-changing, massive stroke of pure random luck. Okay, so just how lucky are we talking? Well, back in 1968, you had something like 303 million high school-aged kids in the world, and only about 300 of them went to Lakeside. The odds were, quite literally, 1 in a million. That's the power of luck. But remember, luck, it has a sibling. And this is where Kent Evans comes into the picture. According to Gates himself, Kent wasn't just some friend. He was his equal in every way. Brilliant with computers, a natural business mind, they spent endless hours plotting the future they were going to build side by side. They were, a team. Same odds, totally different story. And this is the other side of that same exact coin. While Bill Gates was hit by 1 in a million luck, Kent Evans was hit by 1 in a million risk. He died in a mountaineering accident before he even graduated, never getting the chance to build that future he and Gates had dreamed up. So this incredible story really sets the stage for the main idea of this whole chapter. The idea is that luck and risk, they're not just, related. They are the exact same force, just moving in opposite directions. What that means is that every outcome, good or bad, is shaped by things way outside of our individual effort. So here's the bottom line. You just can't believe in one without having a healthy respect for the other. It was the exact same force of pure chance, pointed in different directions, that led to two completely different lives. Luck and risk are totally inseparable. And look, this isn't just some abstract philosophical thing. You've got Nobel Prize winner Robert Shiller, and when someone asked him what's the one thing he wants to know most about investing, this was his answer. So even the absolute top experts admit that randomness plays this huge, impossible-to-measure role in everything. So this leads to a really tricky question, right? When you look at someone who's super successful, are you seeing pure skill, or are you just looking at a lottery winner? That line between being bold and being reckless, it's basically invisible until you know how the story ends. All right, let's take Cornelius Vanderbilt, for example. This guy built a massive railroad empire, and he did it by just completely ignoring the law. His whole attitude was basically, hey, the rules don't apply to me and my grand vision. And you know what? For him, it worked out. And because he won, we look back and we call his actions cunning or visionary. But just imagine for a second a slightly different timeline, one where he ends up in prison. The story would flip in a heartbeat. He'd go from genius to criminal, just like that. The action didn't change, only the outcome, which was swayed by risk, did. Or hey, how about Benjamin Graham? I mean, this is the guy who basically invented value investing, built his whole reputation on being disciplined and diversifying your investments. But guess what? The vast majority of his own personal fortune came from one single, massive, concentrated bet on Geico, a move that completely broke all of his own famous rules. So was that a moment of pure genius? Or was it, as he himself kind of wondered, just one really, really lucky break? Okay, now check out this contradiction. So Mark Zuckerberg gets called a genius, a visionary, for turning down $1 billion from Yahoo, right? But then you have Yahoo, and they're called fools for turning down Microsoft's buyout offer. The decisions were basically identical, but we judge them in completely opposite ways, and it's all based on one thing: the final outcome. Okay, so if this is all so obvious, why is it so hard for us to actually accept the huge role that luck and risk play? Well, the answer is all in our heads, in our psychology. See, our brains are just wired to look for simple, clean stories. A caused B. But randomness, well, that's messy. It's not a clean story. It's a total psychological minefield, really. If you attribute someone else's success to luck, you just sound jealous. And if you attribute your own success to luck, well, that can feel kind of demoralizing, can it? We have this built-in bias. When we fail, it's because of bad luck. It's risk. But when they fail, oh, that's because they made bad choices. This whole mental mess makes it almost impossible to see the world as it actually is. So, what are we supposed to do with all this? How can we actually use this idea to make better judgments, better decisions? Housel gives us a new way to think about it, a new framework. And it's basically a two-step process. First step, be really careful who you praise and admire, and also who you look down on. The people with the most extreme success or the most extreme failure, their stories are often so dominated by luck or risk that they're actually terrible examples to learn from. So the second step is to focus less on specific individuals and way more on broad patterns. You'll learn so much more by studying the common habits of thousands of people who successfully save for retirement than by studying the 1 in a million story of one particular billionaire. And, who better to wrap this idea up than Bill Gates himself? He said, "Success is a lousy teacher. It seduces smart people into thinking they can't lose." Think about that. If you can admit that luck played a role in getting you to the top, you have to also admit that its twin, risk, can knock you right back down just as fast. Now, don't get me wrong, this is not an argument against hard work. Putting in the effort, making smart decisions, that's absolutely crucial. But the real secret sauce is to add 2 more layers on top of that. Humility when things are going your way, and a sense of forgiveness when when other people go wrong. That's how you start to build a more realistic and honestly, a more compassionate way of looking at the world. So all of this leaves us with one final and much bigger question to chew on. If we can strip away all that noise from luck and risk, if we can truly accept that the final score isn't always the best measure of the player, what's left? What's the real yardstick? How should we truly measure a life?